They are perhaps the gentlest creatures on Earth, slow-moving, warm-blooded mammals who nurture their young in the waters of Florida and parts of the Caribbean. They are called manatees. They are cousins to dugongs, animals which have vanished from large areas of their range and are in danger of disappearing altogether. Considered key indicator species, their loss signals a degradation of the coastal environment, foreshadowing a loss of fish resources and income from tourism. Living in both saltwater and fresh, they once ranged like herds of seagoing cattle over broad aquatic expanses. They were safe from most predators, except for man, who hunted them to a fragment of their former populations. Today, their greatest enemy is speed. During the past decade, hundreds of manatees have been killed by collisions with boats. It is now estimated there are 2,000 to 3,000 manatees in the waters of Florida, a drop of more than 90% from its former population. If representatives of the boating industry have their way, we won't have even that many for long. They're pushing to remove manatees from the endangered species list.
We feel that what they're trying to do is shut down boating, which is an $11 billion industry in Florida, and make most of the waterways slow speed.
This backlash is part of an effort to weaken laws which protect the manatee by creating low-speed boating zones and sanctuaries where human entry is banned or limited. The groups fighting to limit manatee protection are threefold. Boat owners who demand no limitations on the speed at which they can operate their boats. Fishermen who don't want to be shut out of habitat critical to manatees. And the manufacturers of boats and engines. And make no mistake about it, feelings run high.
Feeding grounds for game fish, and the hell with the manatee. I've eaten manatee.
Florida now has 800,000 registered boats, and many of the 2,000 to 3,000 surviving manatees show grisly evidence of their encounters with boats. Propeller-shaped scars on their backs, heads, and tails. And manatees face other threats at the hand of man. In recent years, they've been victims of mass die-offs, apparently due to red tides caused by agricultural runoff. Red tides consist of tiny marine organisms which give off a toxic byproduct that affects the central nervous system. In 1996 alone, 151 manatees died due to red tide. That's at least 12% of Florida's West Coast population. On cold days in winter, manatees gather in warm water springs. At the surface, temperatures may be below freezing, creating an eerie wonderland of fog and light. But underneath the water is warmed by springs, rising from within the earth to create a warm bath and a safety net for the manatees. Starting just after dawn, tourists and locals alike flock to areas like Seven Sisters on Crystal River. Throughout the day, boats arrive carrying more and more visitors, eager for a close encounter with these docile mammals. The tranquility of the manatees is invaded by a confusion of kicking feet and grasping hands. There is no doubt that some manatees seek out these strangely clad intruders, so eager to give them a massage. But there are consequences to so many people pursuing manatees in so small a space. At any given moment, there may be dozens of humans pursuing one manatee and her calf. The calves, especially, are initially curious. But as they venture off, they maintain communication with their mothers through chirps and whistles. If there is too much human intrusion, the manatees are forced from their warm refuge into the far colder waters of the main river. The results can be lethal. In an effort to end harassment of manatees, divers and boaters are prohibited from entering certain critical areas, especially those where mating takes place. This allows them to eat and rest and nurse their young. With adequate habitat and food, manatees can grow to 12 feet long and weigh up to 1,800 pounds. The manatees have responded well to these protected areas. They seem to know the boundaries which keep them safe and often come out to meet humans on the edges. Manatees are not merely enchanting animals. They're an important part of the Florida ecosystem, helping control exotic weeds. Crystal River is an example of what can happen when humans interfere with an ecosystem. The name Crystal River was once accurate, but not today. During the 1980s and 90s, the waters here went from truly crystalline to extremely turbid and murky. Machines now fight an unending battle against fast-growing exotic plants nourished by agricultural runoff. The efforts to save the manatees are part of a far larger crusade to save the fragile ecosystem of Florida. The Everglades and much of the rest of natural Florida have been invaded by millions of people coming to seek their place in the sun. Huge high-rises and sprawling suburbs now threaten to overwhelm the delicate ecosystems which support life here. Sugarcane, cattle ranching, and other forms of agriculture all combine to pollute the water and promote rapid growth of aquatic plants. Each year, there is less space for wildlife. In years to come, manatees will tell us a lot about our environment. Further die-offs will indicate a continuing degradation of the marine and freshwater ecosystems. And the well-being of the manatee will tell us something about ourselves. Do we have the kindness and patience to slow down a little for these wonderful animals? To make a place for creatures which are gentle and slow and curious about us?